Good morning, gearheads. Welcome to Speed City F1 on Sirius XM. We could not be more excited. It is the season finale of an incredible season in Formula One, and the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix is coming up. This is John Massengale, sitting in the studio with Jonathan Green and Les Kiser.
Yep.
How are you, gentlemen?
Good.
Can we just go straight to racing? Can we get them to push it up a little bit?
And we are joined over Zoom by Bob Varsha. That was Bob's voice you heard. Good morning, Mr. Varsha.
Good morning, guys. How's everybody doing?
Good. Good to have you, buddy.
Only thing it'd be better if we were actually at a racetrack this morning.
Yeah.
Producer says it's early for him. You know what? I had no problem waking up this morning. I woke up and was so excited. I made myself a great cup of tea and was all ready to go. And then I took one taste of it and poured it out, Jonathan, because it was so bad.
It was English tea.
I didn't make it for you. That's why.
I know. That's the problem.
Dude, I had a neighbor knock on my door last night and just literally knocked my door and never comes around and said, "So what do you think?" I was like, "Of what?" And he goes, "Well, who's going to win?" I wanted to get you before you got up tomorrow morning. I was like, "Okay, cool."
That's awesome.
That's great. I ran into a guy at the grocery store last night. I'd never met him, but he had the full Mercedes jacket on, and just kind of looked at him. I said, "Nice jacket." And he just kind of looked at me, looked down at it, and I said, "So who's going to win?" Oh man, this is good. And we chatted there in the aisle like monkeys for a while.
Well,
so,
isn't it nice to have the entire world paying attention, especially here in the States when NFL and everything else rule? But it's amazing everybody is paying attention.
It's
right
not.
now.
Yeah, it's nice when you've been doing this many years of it, and then suddenly everybody's woken up to it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, we're going to try to get you up to speed because there has been a little bit of breaking news overnight, and that is Nikita Mazepin has tested positive for COVID and is not going to race. And according to the rules, they cannot replace him with anyone because if you haven't driven any of the test sessions, you can't race in the race. But Bob, you were saying that they could appeal that?
They could appeal it. Yeah, it's happened before, but it must be said it was with an experienced driver stepping in, and Pietro Fittipaldi clearly is not an experienced Formula One driver, but not my call. We'll see if they pursue the matter. What I'm thinking right now is all the contact tracing that needs to be done with all the people who've been around Nikita Mazepin, as everybody is preparing to rush off to their long-awaited holidays back home, wherever that may be. Now the truth comes out that there was actually a virus spreading in the Formula One paddock in Abu Dhabi, which is serious business.
It is. Yeah.
Well, and you're exactly right. Think of what that could do to the team. Somebody that he's in close contact to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've had different conferences since Thursday, and so those drivers get in pretty close proximity with each other, especially like the post-quali bullpen, things like that. They actually, even with 6-foot spacing, they're still relatively close.
I did see where Pietro will be doing the Pirelli test in Abu Dhabi on Wednesday. But, Bob, you say he's not an experienced driver, and that's absolutely factual. But when he did step in last year, he did so well in that Haas car, So it would be a shame.
Evidence might curry favor with the officials if they decide to appeal this and put him in the car.
Yeah, I don't think the other teams would have any problem with Pietro driving.
Yeah. And
No.
I'm just looking at we haven't talked to anybody this morning over there. And by the way, we did talk to Gunther Steiner this week, and we're going to play some of those clips here in just a few minutes. We're going to have the whole entire interview up on YouTube, but we're going to play most of it today, both pre-show and post-show. Very exciting to talk to Gunther again right here at the end of the season. Lots of good insights from him, including his choice for his pick for today's race. And he chose that on Thursday without knowing anything about qualifying. So it'll be interesting to play all that. But I'm looking at the Haas F1 team Twitter account, and you would think they might say that they were going to appeal, but it just looks like that they're okay with.
To be honest, one of the things that Gunther has admitted over the weekend is that they're literally out of parts. So it's not such a bad thing. They're not going to score points. Missing Mazepin is a shame. But I don't think it's. Go ahead.
The producer just brought me a printout from the FIA and said the stewards have received a request from the Haas F1 team to withdraw Car 9 from the competition on the grounds of force majeure, and the request is approved.
There you go.
So there you go. The tenor of
story.
their Twitter account was the same as what they've decided to do, is to pull the car.
How does our producer get a straight line to the FIA? I love what he's working there.
He knows everybody.
Okay.
He is the man, by the way. Yeah. So yeah. Here's a tweet from Nikita himself. He says, "Hi everyone. Sorry to report I've had a positive COVID test. Feeling totally fine, but won't be able to race today. Wishing all my fellow drivers a fantastic end to the season, and sending thanks and love to everyone for their support." And doesn't that remind all of you guys about what all the drivers and all the way from everybody behind Max and Lewis, like Alonso and everybody, you can tell how much they're excited to watch the end of this season, to watch Lewis and Max.
Well, now, at this point, Nikita gets to have a better view
Yeah. Yeah. You can actually see
without spinning.
Yeah.
No.
Sorry, buddy.
But like, for example, Alonso, you guys, I'm sure all saw the clip last week where him sitting in the garage and watching, and you can't even, he was watching qualifying, and he wouldn't even do the interview because he was trying to focus on Max's lap so much.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you just, I mean, for those who've been living under a rock, why don't we just explain what's about to unfold?
Yeah, that's a good idea, Jonathan. Well, so here we are, last race of the season, tied in points with Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. And I say Max's name first because he's had more wins this season. So if they were to neither score points today, Max would win the race. And in fact,
win this championship.
win the championship. That's right. And so let's talk about those championship possibilities. So today, whoever finishes ahead will win the Drivers' Championship as long as they're in the top 8. And I'll address that in just a moment, because after that, it comes down to where Verstappen finishes. If Hamilton outscores him, he'll be the champion. But if they finish level on points, it'll be Verstappen's title because of, like I was saying, he's had more wins. But finishing level on points could happen with both drivers failing to finish, both drivers finishing outside the top 10, or Hamilton finishing 9th ahead of Verstappen and Red Bull driver Max scoring the extra point for fastest lap. So it's not quite as cut and dry, but it is fascinating because this is the first time this has happened in 50 years and only the second time ever. So here we are witnessing history.
Yeah, 1974 was the last time they came down to the wire. This is the Super Bowl, fourth quarter. Teams are tied. No do-overs. Here we are.
Yeah. The teams are tied, and it's 2 minutes to go.
It's remarkable that we've got here, and it's a half point hanging in there as well. It really is unbelievable that it's mathematically panned out that way. Whoever wrote the script, it's like Ron Howard was on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is fantastic. So the one thing that came up that somebody said, and I said, no, won't happen. I don't think Max is that dastardly. They're not going to crash out in the turn one.
Well, that's been addressed.
Yeah, Bob, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say, in case you think that kind of driving is a new development, go back to 1974 when Emerson Fittipaldi and Clay Regazzoni for McLaren and Ferrari, respectively, were tied going into the last race of the season at Watkins Glen. And on the very first lap, Regazzoni put Fittipaldi onto the grass at 170 miles an hour.
Yeah.
So stuff happens.
Well, following up on exactly that, like I said, this has been addressed because the attitude could be that because of, last week it was a good example, because of the way that Max Verstappen has been driving and getting penalties for driving that because he's got the advantage of one race ahead of Hamilton wins-wise, he could crash them both out. And as Bob points out, that happened in 74. Senna and Prost had it twice. But the FIA have already, and the stewards have already said that they will consider penalty points if such a thing did ensue.
Yeah,
well, so there is a precedent. There's a precedent for that. Consider 1997 when Michael Schumacher hit Jacques Villeneuve to try to win the championship, or at least delay him. And they disqualified the great Michael Schumacher from the entire season.
Ooh.
Yeah. So
a
little 1 point penalty, it would be nothing compared to that. But that could happen, gentlemen. So let's just say Max crashes him out, and then the stewards say, you know what, we're going to penalize you 1 point and give the championship to Hamilton.
Yeah, it's been interesting how the vitriol has been about Verstappen as the villain because he's so aggressive as a driver. But as Bob, I'm sure, will attest, Schumacher and Senna, two of the greats, were in their own time, and to a certain extent Hamilton, but I don't want to put him in that category. But they were ruthless in their pursuit of winning.
And remember 2016 when Nico Rosberg managed to outlast his teammate Lewis Hamilton for his one and only world championship. In that race, Hamilton was accused of some dirty tactics trying to back his teammate into the pursuing pack by going slower and slower and slower. So, nobody is without blame in these situations, particularly in the eyes of his opponent's fans. But when you think about a guy like Verstappen, and I'm sure he hasn't wasted 1 second of time thinking about this, but look back on his season, because the season is the complete picture of how we got to where we are. We didn't just draw straws and come to Abu Dhabi tied. The crash at Silverstone, the crash between Hamilton and Verstappen at Monza. Yeah, right. Getting taken off on the first corner at the Hungaroring was Verstappen. Losing a tire while leading in Azerbaijan.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all these places where points were lost, if not frittered away. And I wonder if that, eats at him at all. I guess it'll depend on what happens today.
Yeah, and that kind of leads to me the discussion to how each of these drivers are driving right now. Just kind of, the last few weeks has been topping the other. About, did you see that lap? It was just out of this world, just insane.
It's
and now and Max yesterday in qualifying. I mean, they just keep
sublime.
doing this. It's sublime is the word.
Those last two qualifying laps, bar hitting the wall at Saudi Arabia, were just incredible. Had he pulled off Saudi Arabia, I think he would be odds-on favourite today. But because of a mistake last time out, but his lap yesterday was fantastic. There's no question. And what's interesting is we can't really decide who the underdog is because everybody wants to be the underdog. This has been a discussion that the BBC has been talking about in the lead up to it on Checkered Flag, which is, Hamilton's not really been in this position before. Even against Rosberg, he was always the favourite. He is the 7-time world champion. He's the GOAT, if you will. And if he pulls it off today, he's an 8-time world champion. So history would tell you that Hamilton is favourite, but the lead up to this has put Hamilton in the ascendance on the last few races, whereas Max on the play for the whole season has pretty much led the way.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about this season going back and all of what Bob was talking about and look at, I'm now envisioning, that line that Formula One, that graphic they put up on the screen where they show who's in the championship lead.
And it's identical.
And it's almost one line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy how this season has stayed so close all the way through. And who'd have thunk it, right?
Yeah.
Right now, Abu Dhabi, we're sitting there thinking, how many years in a row now have we just kind of coasted these last few races of the season? And this whole show would be a review show and talking about the season rather than sitting here on the edge of our seat waiting and thinking about every possible scenario that can happen today.
Yeah, and Lewis Hamilton has had those same moments during the course of the season. I mean, he had that incomprehensible runoff at the first turn on a restart late in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix when he wound up 15th or wherever he was. And a horrible weekend for Hamilton at Imola where he beached it on one occasion. I mean, these guys are all susceptible to the pressures of the moment.
Well, gentlemen, let's get a word from our sponsor, and then we'll take a break. The Speed City F1 pre-race show on SiriusXM is brought to you by CrowdStrike. Use the cloud to secure your team in the office, at the track, or anywhere with CrowdStrike at crowdstrike.com/anywhere. Well, let's get our first break out of the way. When we come back, we're going to start playing some of those clips from Gunther Steiner. You're listening to Speed City live from Austin, Texas. Back after a quick break.
Hi, this is Max Verstappen, and you're listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on Sirius XM.
All right, welcome back. We are about 43 minutes from the race, the finale that we've been waiting for all year, and are on the edge of our seat. Very excited for this. And you know what? I think I want to ask you, Jonathan. You have been talking about. I mean, the possibilities here are crazy. But let's talk about the beginning of the race, because Max is on medium tires, Hamilton's on hard tires, but so are the drivers behind Hamilton on soft tires. So
other way around. Max
yeah,
is
I'm
on
sorry.
soft tires.
Yeah, sorry.
Hamilton is on mediums.
I've got it all backwards there. Max is on soft. Everybody else is on soft right around him, but Lewis and Bottas are on hard tires. I mean, there's no telling where this could
medium
put.
tires.
Oh my gosh. It is 5 a.m.
Just ask the question.
I'm
ready.
going to let you go with it, Jonathan.
Right. Okay. So you have pole position, and it is going to be Max Verstappen, and he is on the softer tires, which gives him both 8 meters and the softer, more grippy but less lasting softer tire. They were kind of forced that way because he flat spotted the front left in Q2 and therefore didn't have a new set of mediums. But it may not be the disadvantage that it will be against the mediums, although Hamilton now starts second behind Verstappen. But what I find interesting, I mean, that's an obvious. It's a straight run to the first corner. I watched F2 yesterday and last night, and it's an easier first corner, I think, than Saudi Arabia last weekend in terms of getting in there, and there's plenty of runoffs. So both should get through cleanly, regardless of if anybody goes wide, i.e. if they're wheel to wheel. I'll be interested to see just how Perez goes from fourth position, because behind both those two are two competitive guys. You've also got Perez and Norris. Norris starts third, Perez fourth, and obviously Perez has a huge role to play if he can get past Norris and if he can start messing with Lewis Hamilton. If he can get close to Hamilton, potentially in the first lap or so, and give Verstappen a chance to get away, then all bets are off, and it could be a Red Bull strategy where Checo basically covers off Hamilton, and they would hope that Verstappen would get enough room in those soft tires to avoid, a pit stop overtake.
I'm with you on Verstappen having the upper hand. The distance as well as the soft tire over Hamilton, I think that's going to be a plus. Lando on soft tires is going to give Hamilton some battle. I think, Hamilton will lose to Max to the front to the first big turn. And I think Lando will be fighting him for it.
It really is early, isn't it? Alonso's a long way back.
Yeah. Well, you've heard Lando, who has been really hands off in this situation. He's been drilled by the press.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do in this mix of title contenders? And he said, I want no part of it. I don't want to get mixed up in the championship. If I can, score well, get my win, do whatever that.
He says that, but he's also got a chance to win. If I were his boss, and I know his boss, Zach, and you do too, Zach's going to be saying, come on, man, we got a chance to win this race. They're not going to get in your way.
Yeah, and keep in mind, we were talking about this yesterday during our production call. Who else is in a battle for a position in the driver's standings? Lando Norris is right in there with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz and the Ferraris. Those guys could all switch positions during the course of the race. So they're going to be looking for each other and not for Verstappen and Hamilton.
Hey, and speaking of that, let's talk about the championship possibilities for the Constructors' Championship. Red Bull are the underdogs now because they need to outscore Mercedes by 28 points to win the title. And so that's a pretty good ways to go. So it'd have to be some pretty big disasters for that to happen. But this is it. This does make it really interesting with Lando up there because, he's saying that, Bob, and it was really funny, and he really looked like the young kid in all of this. But, once those lights go out, Lando's going to be a racer like anybody else. And if he sees an opportunity, he's going to go for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's going to be on his toes. He's ready for it, and he's sitting in a pretty sweet spot.
He got so close in Austria earlier this year, and he was heartbroken that he didn't get that maiden win.
Yeah,
he has a sniff. He's going for it, I'm sure.
All right, gentlemen, we have the first clip from Gunther Steiner. We caught up with Gunther on Thursday. And, Jonathan, I didn't get to join you guys. Once you set this one up, this is Casey's got the clip all ready to go of Gunther talking about Abu Dhabi and Massi roll-in.
Yeah, basically, we obviously we were gonna talk about Abu Dhabi, but is this going back to Saudi Arabia?
Just Gunther on advice for Abu Dhabi.
Oh, right, of course, yeah. So Bob asked him the question, which is, how do you deal with this? Because this is going to be, it was controversial to say the least last week. We hope it isn't as such. But anyway, we asked him, how it's all going to pan out here in Abu Dhabi. This is what he said.
I would say to keep it clean. I mean, obviously, because if you go in there and tell them already to be aggressive, then for sure something happens. Because I think it depends how close they are together, how it will develop the race. You cannot predict it, but just try to say, hey, when you get away, just to try to have no agenda or nothing. Just see how it develops and then try with the team to help them along to get the best out of it, but not that they take it in their own hand to do anything. And then one will win and one will lose, Bob, and it could be either of them. So you just need to win as prepared as you can with as many people which support you in making decisions behind you and try to get the best out of it. And then the daily form will decide who will be ahead of it.
During the broadcast, we heard a lot of back and forth between the pit wall and Michael Massey, the race director. There's been some criticism that maybe there was too much negotiating going on, too much, behind the scenes string pulling, if you will. What's your perspective on where we are in Formula One in terms of that back and forth between race control and the pit wall? Or should the drivers just be out there on their own to race their own race?
No, I wouldn't say that, because they need information, because also there's a safety factor involved in that one. But I think the instructions should be clearer. There should be an instruction, and not, as you said, a negotiation. It's too late to negotiate. There needs to be an instruction, and if the instruction is wrong, we have to deal with it afterwards. But with negotiating, you lose a lot of time, and it muddies the waters, I would say. If you make if it is a command, it's a command. The referee makes a command, and when race cars are going around and they're not slow, as we all know, time flies, and while you speak, you lose time. And then it's a little bit, but a lot of this, there is a lot at stake at the moment, and for sure there is always the worry to do something wrong. That's my opinion. So there's a lot of pressure on Michael Massey in that position. So it's easy to critique, and we now have the benefit of the hindsight. When you are in that moment in time, it's a lot more difficult to deal with than after we thought about it for a week.
Yeah, so very interesting. The team manager's view as to what he would advise, and also his take on how the stewards play it. And no better guy, I don't think, than Gunther Steiner, who is both an insider in Formula One, has been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and is not afraid to tell it like it is.
Mm. Yeah, no doubt. Gunther's been fantastic all season, both Netflix and when we've talked to him, but it's really fascinating to get his insights. And we've got more from Gunther coming up here in a bit in the show. But go ahead, Les.
Somebody mentioned again, I know we mentioned it a couple of months ago. Do you think Gunther's seat is safe?
Good question. Look.
Yes.
You think so, Jonathan?
Yeah.
Are you suggesting there may be team managers with experience on the market, Les?
I've heard rumors, speculation.
Well,
but somebody said, okay, seriously, Gunther is Gunther bringing money to the team himself? I don't believe he is.
No.
And so is he delivering it the way Gene wants to see it delivered? I don't think he is.
That's interesting you say that, because I think he pulled off a coup. I think he saved the team from extinction. If you want my opinion, Gene was ready to close the doors before the 5-year deal because he was losing money hand over fist. And you're right, they started a few years ago in the top 6 sort of thing, and unbelievable start at the beginning. But then it all fizzled out, and they had a terrible couple of years, and that Gene said, look, either something needs to change. And so he got rid of both experienced drivers, very good drivers, I may add, and brought in both money and talent. He managed to do a deal with Ferrari. I say do a deal with Ferrari. They wanted him to take Schumacher, and Schumacher is there and has proved his worth already. Mazepin, has not proved as good on track yet, but has brought an inordinate amount of money, which has sort of kept Gene at least satisfied that it was worth signing for the next 5 years. So I would have said Gunter's done an amazing job.
And I would go even farther. I'd give Gunter and Gene Haas more credit. There are 10 teams in Formula One. And the money distribution under the Bernie Ecclestone administration, up until the time Liberty Media got involved, was terribly one-sided on behalf of the big teams, the rich teams, the teams who didn't need more money but were getting it anyway. I think Gene Haas helped to make it clear to F1 that had to change, that the teams at the back who needed help needed a redistribution of the funds in F1. And, they've been talking about it for years, but when one of those precious 10 teams on the grid says, if this goes on, we're done, I think that helped open the eyes of the folks at Liberty to the fact that there needed a change to be made when it comes to the distribution of the billions of dollars that Formula One generates every year.
Yeah, and a caveat on that is that, all the Gunter's been doing for the last 2 years, preparing for 2022. So I think for him to be, exited at this point would be odd, in my opinion.
That's great, because I don't want to see him go for personal reasons, but that was a poignant question to me. And it was like, okay, I can see how you can think that.
I mean, I certainly can understand the question, because hovering at the back, I mean, we don't even have to look at where they're going to finish every race. We know where they're going to finish. They've had one driver at a Q1.
And I'll use the expression, but NFL and soccer, if you're Manchester United's manager or you're the Cowboys manager here, and you don't get any points on the board,
yeah, you will not be there. So it's a reasonable question.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah, how about them Cowboys?
Producer's been waiting to use that clip all season.
Love it.
Based here in Austin. Well, gentlemen, we are up against another quick break. Let's go ahead and get that in, and then we'll be about 30 minutes from the season finale. You're listening to Speed City F1 on SiriusXM. Back after these messages.
Just and people
Hello to everyone, this is Gunther Steiner, this is Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on Sirius XM.
Has your workforce moved from the home office to the home or to the garage, or maybe a rented cabin with open Wi-Fi? If your company has expanded outside the office and moved all your applications to the cloud, there's a whole new world of threats you have to worry about, including ransomware. CrowdStrike revolutionized security by harnessing the speed and power of the cloud to identify and stop the most advanced cyber attacks, even those that have never been seen before. So now you can work securely anywhere. Try CrowdStrike Falcon free today and protect your data and employees anywhere. Welcome to Anywhere. CrowdStrike, we stop breaches. Access the CrowdStrike Falcon platform free at crowdstrike.com/anywhere. All right, gentlemen, we were talking about Gunther Steiner. We have one more clip from him that I want to play because it's very relevant to the discussion you were just bringing up, Les, about, whether Gunther deserves to stay where he is. But this clip is about the structure, and let's go ahead and hear what Gunther says about that.
Basically, machine shop, obviously with harsh machines. In Banbury, there is the race team, the people which travel, and the support team which supports all the parts and the planning. It's all there, and the vehicle dynamics department is there as well. And in Italy is nothing different than from the beginning. The only thing which changed, before we had more people with Dallara, at Dallara, we have now people actually in Ferrari, which we had before, because we always used their wind tunnel since the beginning. And we always had people in the wind tunnel before, but then they went always back to Dallara. But now these people are staying, we have an office now within Maranello, within Ferrari, where we have got about 70 people in total, and we have got another 30 in Dallara still. So we have got about 70 people there, and some of them, around 30 people, come from Ferrari or came from Ferrari beginning of the year, because Ferrari had to make cuts because of the budget cut. So we were pretty happy to take them on, and they are led by Simone Resta, which I don't know, he was at Ferrari chief designer, and for maybe not from the beginning, but at least he's there at Ferrari since 20-25 years. So he's got good experience, and he's leading now the technical team in Italy.
There's been a lot of talk, Gunther, about customer teams and their place in the hierarchy of Formula One. We see this evolution, and I think Haas, frankly, is leading the way in terms of dealing with your engine supplier and with the expertise that may not be on the racetrack right now, but can be helpful in pulling your team together. Is this specific to Haas, or is this the future of Formula One because of the financial restriction coming into play? Are Formula One teams going to have to reach out more to outside providers of expertise and hardware and software and so on?
I think there's more than one business model which works, Bob. But this is one which seems to be working, because when we started, I mean, we saw all the other people which started doing everything themselves, and they all went away or went bankrupt and never made a point. So for us, just saying we do the same but just more of it was not really a solution, because this was good people, this was not stupid people, and they couldn't pull it off because it's so complex, Formula One. So I think there is now more than one business model. Before it was just this one business model. You do everything yourself, get your head down, and keep on going until you're bankrupt, and then I think we invented a different way to do it, and some people copied parts of it. Some people didn't copy anything, and maybe some people are going to do the completely same as us. On the way, the last 6 years, the regulation have changed a little bit, so it's not as, I would say, not as easy as we had it, because when we did it, there was no regulation for this, because never anybody had done it. So we found a lot of loopholes to do things to get quicker ready for Formula One. But they closed all the loopholes, so it's a little bit more difficult now to do it, and a more restriction in it, what you can do. But it's still, I think it's still, I wouldn't say it's a better or worse business model. It's just different, there is more than one way to do this now, and that is, I would say, also normal in any other industry. You don't need to do always the same, just more of it to be better. You sometimes need to go a little bit a different way, left or right, and that's what we did.
Fascinating, huh?
Yeah, very
And-
interesting, especially about Ferrari, I think.
And
That's
I wanted to put that in, given what your question was, which was a perfectly good question. But I'm going to throw it back to Bob. It was Bob's question. Bob, there was some, there is potential criticism. They haven't scored any points. Do you get rid of Gunter? But don't you think he kind of addressed that there?
Yeah, I think he did. I think his relationship with Gene Haas has little nuances to it that the rest of us don't understand, which is not unusual. But Haas being, despite all that personnel numbers he mentioned there, is still a relatively small team, and that's a totally different dynamic, I would imagine, in terms of management than what you get at the Ferraris and the Mercedes of the world with 1,000, 1,200 employees all working on the car. So, yeah, I think the bottom line is I think there's better days ahead for Haas, and I think Gunther will be a part of that.
Yeah, and I've said all along that when Alfa Romeo showed up, as it were, when Sauber kind of amalgamated with an Alfa Romeo, and we all know the history of Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, and effectively they kind of poised themselves as a Ferrari junior team, and that is still so. But I do feel, given those numbers that Gunter was mentioning, and the amount of people in Italy, 70 people with Dallara, Ferrari, 30 from Ferrari, including Simone Di Resta, the chassis guy, very, very experienced. I would argue now that Haas is probably more engrossed and part of Ferrari than Alfa Romeo is currently.
yeah, and maybe more than they have been ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the point of my question was, the Haas team came in for a lot of stick early on because they kind of ran the Formula One team the way Gene Haas runs his Stuart Haas NASCAR operation. He takes a lot of parts off the shelf from other successful suppliers. Now, Formula One prides itself on the fact that every team designs and builds its own car. Well, that's largely true, but more and more we're seeing the influence of outside component makers with the helping out these teams and taking over certain responsibilities. And with the financial future of Formula One, the spending cap and so forth getting tighter and tighter around the sport, I think there's going to be more of that going on, and people are going to be looking for help getting the car together, assembling the technology. And I think Haas is probably a bit more experienced than some of the big teams might be at locating those component makers and bringing them into the design and performance of the car. So, it's a different situation. Haas is not the traditional up by your bootstraps, build every little bit on the car kind of team. They are a much more, I'll call it modern, if you like, more contemporary Formula One operation. And that was the thrust of what I was trying to get at with them about the business model and whether more teams were going to be going in that direction.
All right, gentlemen, let's start shifting gears and paying attention to exactly what's going on. I was looking, looks like a little bit of wind out there, and that was brought up to me by one of our watchers on YouTube. Kevin Kelly said that, but also Derek McCord said, "Good morning, guys, listening with his wife on his way to the local Cincinnati bar to watch the race." That's pretty awesome that somebody's opening up the bar at 8 a.m. in the morning in Cincinnati.
That's normal Cincinnati,
Come
It's
on,
cold.
Watch parties.
No, I'm loving hearing more and more watch parties. I know we've got one here in Central Texas, group of guys, and they call their place the Howard. So good morning, guys.
I just looked on the television. There's Kimi Räikkönen in his final race as an F1 driver. Man, that's
What a career.
yeah.
Incredible career.
Yep.
I would actually liken Verstappen most closely to Raikkonen's rise in terms of from the junior ranks. Like Verstappen, he just popped out as a teenager and just started wooing everybody. Even Jensen Button yesterday, again on the BBC, was like, yeah, my first race with Raikkonen, he overtook me. And I was like, who the heck is this?
Well, we are 18 minutes from the start of the race. Let's talk a little bit. In fact, Bob, why don't you talk about the starting grid for us and get us set up there,
Sure.
and then we'll talk about some of the strategies.
Okay, let's run down the grid. On the front row, you couldn't have planned it any better. The two title protagonists, Max Verstappen for Red Bull, his second straight pole in Abu Dhabi. And remember, he won from pole here last year. And Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes, who was going for a fourth straight win as he as he posts this late season charge. On row 2, Lando Norris with a terrific qualifying effort after some difficulty in recent races. In fact, it's his best start since Russia when he was on pole. And Sergio Perez right behind his teammate in the Red Bull. 2 Red Bulls in the top 5 in Abu Dhabi. First time in the hybrid era going back to 2014. Row 3, Carlos Sainz in the first of the Ferraris, his best ever start at Yas Marina Circuit. And Valtteri Bottas, his worst Q3 performance since Russia 7 Grand Prix ago. On row 4, Charles Leclerc in the second Ferrari. Ferrari has never won at Abu Dhabi. They've raced there 12 times, and that's the most times they have raced at any given racetrack without posting a pole or a win. So they'd like to end that streak. Alongside Yuki Tsunoda, I don't know what they gave him for breakfast on qualifying day, but it worked. He out-qualified his teammate Pierre Gasly for the first time in a traditional qualifying session. A terrific drive for the young Japanese. On row 5, Esteban Ocon, who out-qualified his 2-time world champion teammate Fernando Alonso and beats him in the season-long head-to-head, 12-10. And Daniel Ricciardo, who was out-qualified by his teammate Lando Norris at McLaren for the 4th straight Grand Prix. On row 6, Fernando Alonso, who missed Q3 by just 12 one-thousandths of a second, and the aforementioned Pierre Gasly, who missed Q3 for only the 4th time in the last 25 Grand Prix. On row 7, Lance Stroll in the first of the Aston Martins in his 100th Grand Prix. And so he out-qualifies his 4-time world champion teammate, Sebastian Vettel. Next to him, Antonio Giovinazzi. You got a feel for Giovinazzi. He's Kimi Raikkonen's teammate. Both guys are out of a drive next year. Raikkonen's getting all the attention because everybody loves Kimi and he's the most experienced driver in history. And Antonio's like, hey, I'm leaving too. Anyway, good luck to him. Good kid. On row 8, Sebastian Vettel and Nicholas Latifi in the first of the Williams cars, which is a bit of a surprise because Latifi's teammate George Russell is inside row 9 alongside Kimi Raikkonen. I loved Kimi's comment at the end of the Saudi race when some press person asked him, what'd you think of the track? And he said, what difference does it make? I'm not coming back here next year. And on row 10, Mick Schumacher will start all by himself in the Haas because, as we've talked about, his teammate Nikita Mazepin tested not once but twice positive for COVID-19.
Brilliant. Excellent stuff.
Hey, and what about, Jonathan, the message on Kimi Raikkonen's car? Brilliant.
Dear Kimi, okay, we'll leave you alone now.
That is fantastic.
I love it.
That is a great way to send him off with the message on his car. You know what? Let's get our last break in right now. And then, Les, I want to go to you for the tire strategies because that is definitely going to play a large role in today. You're listening to Speed City live from Austin, back after these messages.
I'm Jenny Gow from BBC F1. You are listening to Speed City.
You're listening to Speed City F1 on Sirius XM.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We got 12 minutes before the start of the final race of the season. And Max Verstappen on pole with Lewis Hamilton right behind him. And let's talk tires, because Max is on the medium tires. And like you said, Jonathan, he's 8 meters ahead of Lewis Hamilton.
He's on the soft tires.
My gosh, I did it again. Max is on the the gooey, sticky tire. My brain. Okay, so Max is on the soft tire.
Who's on first?
Yeah, and Lewis Hamilton is on the medium tire. It's not as soft. It's not as sticky. He's not going to get the start.
But he's going to go longer.
He's going to, yes. But that's really important at the start here, right? Because Max could potentially jump right out and leave Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, Verstappen with 8 meters, that's the gap between the two of them, and obviously a softer tire, grippier, should get, if both of them have identical starts, and we've seen the 0 to 200 kilometer graphic, which I love, and they've both been fairly consistent on that.
Right around 5 seconds,
Yeah, and so the bottom line is, if he should, in theory, get away and get the start, and Hamilton will slot in behind him. That's the theory. But over the next 10 laps, as Verstappen's tyre starts to go off, or at least over, starting after, let's say, lap 10, if there's nothing clear, then Hamilton should have the advantage and should go longer than perhaps Verstappen can. But that's a theory, and anything can happen. And as we saw last weekend, you can also, if there's an almighty shunt or whatever, you can also potentially, with a red flag, get a chance to get off those tyres.
Yeah. Well, Les.
Yeah, but you don't want it to happen too often, because you're probably going to want to go straight onto the hards and go the rest of the way. You don't want to stress those tires too much. So if you're going to have a pit stop under a yellow flag, you hope it comes maybe around between lap 15 and 20, I would think.
Yeah, good point from a strategic standpoint. Les, you did some research on the tires. What are your thoughts so far?
Alrighty, so far, I think both of their settings are good. Max, like I said, it's going to stretch out his soft. These are not bad softs to start on. And then he's going to go to medium and go on. Somebody teased that this is going to be a 2-stop race. I really don't think that's the situation.
Well, it hasn't been in the past.
Yeah. And that's why I say I don't think that's going to happen. That's not this track. The changes to the track, turn 5 and turn 9, are not something that's really going to induce a lot. In fact, the removal of the one chicane, now creating a single sweeper, probably helped extend life a little bit. And I feel like those kind of things are going to compound the idea. We're going to stick with a single stop. It's going to be a swifter race because of that chicane is gone, and now you can just kind of pin it and hang on through that long sweep.
And again, something I noticed from watching F2, I really enjoy now watching F2 for the exact reason that it gives us an idea of what is possible in the actual Formula One race. And no question, turn 9, that sweeper you're talking about, absolutely leads to potential overtakes coming in and going out. So we saw several more overtaking opportunities in the F2 race than Abu Dhabi usually throws up. So watch out for that. I think we'll see more overtaking, and we were pleasantly surprised last week in Saudi Arabia. Let's hope we are again. I think Karun Chandok, who's being kind of he was part of the team that made the changes, but he's kind of getting the accolades because all the drivers do love the changes, and I do think it's going to create better overtaking.
Okay, let's talk second drivers here, the importance, because I'm looking at Lewis Hamilton and looking, where's his teammate? Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6. All the way down in 6th place. He's not going to be much help for him down there.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah.
And Sergio Perez in a little better position here, because actually he's in a pretty good position because he's ahead of Bottas, number one. That's the best thing, and keeping him out of the fray. But he's down in 4th as well. But this is so important. We can't underestimate the importance of these second drivers today.
Well, yeah, Checo especially, I think, could play a massive, massive role. He's in with the team. He's up to speed. He's staying where he is. He's motivated. He helped. They did a brilliant job in qualifying, giving each other a tow, more so Perez than giving Verstappen a tow. in the latter part of the qualifying lap, rather than when Verstappen was slowing down, he tried to give Perez a little bit help, but not quite as much. And I think that his role, if he can get ahead of Norris and challenge Hamilton, could be vital.
Yeah, that could make all the difference. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I'm trying to run through all these scenarios in my mind about whose tires will last longer and how much energy is going through those tires. And I think Jonathan is onto something there. If there's a fight, if someone can press Lewis, he's going to work his tires a lot harder than he otherwise would. And if Lewis is looking in his mirrors and not looking ahead at Max Verstappen and what he's doing, I mean, there's so many different permutations that could take place here. It's just going to be fascinating. I'll be really interested to see if Max can turn that incredible turn of speed in qualifying, 1 lap speed, into 58 lap speed, because every fan knows those are 2 very different things. And we'll have to see what Red Bull and Mercedes have for each other in terms of setup.
All righty. So Lando said he was going to kind of stay out of the way, but would he actually go and help Lewis? Being Mercedes cousins?
He is a Mercedes driver. Yeah, there's always that to consider. I don't think Lando, in fairness to him, said, I'm going to stay out of the way. I thought what he said was, I don't want to be a factor in who wins the championship.
No.
Just wants to go off, run his race, maybe win his race.
Yeah, he didn't say anything about not wanting to win the race or not wanting to be involved in the race. He just didn't want to crash somebody out of the championship.
And who's his simulator teammate, Mr. Verstappen?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, but he's powered by Mercedes.
That actually is not a stupid point, and I don't mean that like you meant it as a super point, but it's a very
Thank you.
Well, but we talked about this yesterday, which is, could that come into play, Bob? Right? You've got Mercedes guys up there. It's not just the teammates. There's also the factories.
That's true. It's very true, and I don't know how much influence Mercedes has over the career paths of their drivers, but at the very least, that's a Mercedes engine, behind the McLaren guys and the Williams guys and so on. So, if called upon, and keep in mind the Williams guys, they're slow here, but that means they're going to be lapped. So the leaders are going to catch them and they're going to find themselves in close proximity at one point or another. So anything could happen. And blood is thicker than water, particularly when it's petroleum.
Jonathan, so when I first found out that that Max was going to start on soft tires, I thought I heard that. You think in the last couple of years, you think of the medium tire being the big advantage to start the race on, right? You have with the tire,
but it's a risk to take the medium tire in Q2 because you don't know if it's going to be faster,
right? But if you can, Mercedes and Red Bull have been doing that, right? But so what's the difference this year about, because really you heard Christian Horner in qualifying say, we were kind of 50-50 on it. Used to be, they were pretty heavily saying, if we can start on the medium tire, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. If we can be fast enough in qualifying, we're going to start on the medium tire. But this time they're saying, maybe starting on the soft tire may be the smart move anyway. So do you know why that shift is?
Just simply because you're going to get the grip early. And these races, basically track position. If you can have the lead, you're always going to be in a strategy position and the obvious thing, you're leading the race. But the bottom line is it's your decision making, and especially in Verstappen's case with Checo in fourth, you can control the race much better from the front, and you can decide strategy from the front much better than chasing. That said, Hamilton, quite cheekily, said after his qualifying, at least I can see where he is. And I think that's a good point, given what's gone down too. So I think both of them are actually happy where they're starting.
I think what Lewis said was total nonsense. He's making the best of a bad situation. At least I can tell where he is. I remember many years ago when Darrell Waltrip and Bill Elliott were fighting for a NASCAR championship. We were coming down to the last race of the year, which I think was at Riverside. And Darrell, who had won several championships at that point, was asked about Bill, who had not won any championships, and said to Darrell, well, Bill says, that he would rather be the hunter than the hunted, and he's the hunter and you're the hunted in this championship battle. And Darrell thought about that for a second and said, how would he know? I think there's a certain amount of that. Lewis is putting that comment out there for Max to think about. I'm back here, pal. I'm in your mirrors. I will be all day long. Bring it. And I was on the tire situation. I will say the Pirelli models pit stop strategy for this race, of the 3 fastest models, 2 of them involve starting on the soft red compound tire.
And there you go.
I think gives credence to what Jonathan was saying about Christian Horner's comment that it could have gone with either one.
All right, gentlemen, we are down to the wire. We got less than 2 minutes. I want to play the clip. Before I ask you guys who you think is going to win or who you want to win, let's ask Gunther Steiner, because we did ask him this question on Thursday when we met with him on Zoom. So let's hear what Gunther Steiner says about his choice.
There will be a big battle about it. I think Max takes it. I think and people ask me why you say that. Why not? I think he's in a good place. He's fighting hard, but for sure they both will be fighting for it. So, my money would be on Max.
Okay.
Nice. And that was before Max was on pole. So
that's true.
Good on you, Gunther. Yeah. All right, Jonathan, we got just a few seconds left here.
I'm going to back myself up with some celebrities here. Samuel L. Jackson has just tweeted out, go Hamilton. Robert De Niro is in Hamilton's corner. Marc Marquez, MotoGP world champion, is in Max's corner. I was in Max's corner, but I'm now in Hamilton's.
All right, last 10 seconds.
Max.
There you go. Bob?
I'm going to go with Max. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. I'm going to go with Max. I'm going to go with Lando in second. How about that, guys?
Let's do that. I like that one.
Are we winning races or winning championships here?
Well,
it's both.
You guys, you guys already chose both, so there you go. All right, well, thanks, everybody. And don't forget, we do have our full 1-hour post-race show after this, so after the race. But stay tuned right here on SiriusXM for the race.
Last one, George Lucas says, the force is with you, Lewis.
There we go. All right, talk to you after the race.
Oh, yeah.